guys, Bros and Ramos, and this Sunday, the Miami Dolphins defeated the Cleveland Browns 20-3, and it wasn't much of a competition, pretty much from the very beginning. Early on, both teams were struggling to get their offenses going, but in the second half is really where the Miami Dolphins were able to separate with 2 touchdowns coming in each the third and the fourth quarter, making this win a big time win for the Miami Dolphins. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the post game review. So Miami is now at 8-8, 500 on the year. They got one more game left to go, and they're facing the New York Jets next week. In New York, a lot of things on the line. They need the Denver Broncos to lose this upcoming game against Kansas City Chiefs, and then win against the New York Jets. And the Miami Dolphins have found themselves in the postseason for the third consecutive season. Is that likely? I doubt it. I don't know. Because the possibility is that Carson Wentz plays, and who knows if this Kansas City Chiefs team is really that good and could win without Patrick Mahomes in the lineup. It's going to be interesting down the line, but I'm expecting the NFL to schedule both of those games around the same time, so more than likely in the 1 or 4 o'clock window. I would probably expect them to be in the 4 o'clock window of Kansas City. So let's see just how things go out there. But yeah, Miami Dolphins, big time win against the Cleveland Browns. Tua did not play in this one. We got to see Tyler Huntley play and arguably have one of his best games with the Miami Dolphins, which is honestly great to hear. So let's start off with the team stats. We'll get into the highlight, and then we'll go over some box score stats, individual player stats, etc. And just talk about the Dolphins' future and see where things go from here. All right, so let's take a look at team stats. Both teams had 18 first downs. Dolphins were 2 of 11 on third down efficiency, 0 for 1 on fourth down. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns were 7 of 17 on third down and 0 for 4 on fourth down. If we continue on, we have some red zone. Dolphins went 2 for 2 on the red zone, so both times they made it into the red zone, they were able to score touchdowns. Cleveland Browns went 0 for 3, so not a great day there. But you can also understand that in some moments of this game, the Browns decided to go for it on fourth down instead of possibly kicking a field goal and making it a one-score game. So that was not in their favor. Arguably one of the first times I've seen this all season for the Miami Dolphins. They had more penalties, more yardage off of penalties, and somehow won the game. Miami Dolphins had 11 penalties for 94 total yards. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns had 9 penalties for 84 total yards. Time of possession might as well have been almost split right down the middle. The Miami Dolphins had the ball for 30 minutes and 41 seconds. The Cleveland Browns had it for 29 minutes and 19 seconds. Last but not least, Miami Dolphins won the turnover battle. So that was big time for Miami, honestly. All right. So before we get into any box score stuff, let's talk about the highlight. Each and every week, it's pretty much luck of the draw whether or not they decide to pull the highlight off of this video. So if it does jump, you guys know why. It's because I was not able to publish the whole video with the highlight. Now, with all that being said, let's get into that. Like we said early on, no Tua in this matchup, so you're going to see lots of Tyler Huntley playing for the Miami Dolphins, at least in this game. Early on in this game, Miami Dolphins, Jay Sanders takes a long field goal and gets it to bounce off the crossbar and into the uprights. Lucky bounce for the Miami Dolphins, literally. Later on in the game, still in the first half, Tyrell Dodson gets a big-time interception and very costly penalty here. Takes off his helmet and sets the Dolphins back. Unfortunately, they weren't capitalized off of that interception. Tyler Huntley, though, in the second half, calling his shot, hoping Julian Hill can block for him. No, but still gets in the end zone for 6. Tua is happy to see that. But later on, following Cleveland Browns drive, Jalen Ramsey, big-time fourth down pass breakup, and it helps the Miami Dolphins keep the Browns out of the end zone. Then later on, one of the last couple drives for the Cleveland Browns, Jordan Brooks able to wrap up a Cleveland Browns receiver on fourth down and puts the Dolphins in great field position, which helped set up this beautiful Jonnu Smith touchdown. This helps Jonnu Smith become one of the all-time Dolphin great tight ends. He has the most receptions, most yards, and now most touchdowns. And yes, Buddy Dolph, your list is right. Now the Miami Dolphins have a couple more things to lock out there. They already got the Colts loss, which helps boost the Dolphins up. And now they already have a Broncos loss. They need one more next week, and the Dolphins need a win next week. So there's a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there is a real chance that the Miami Dolphins could find themselves in the postseason and possibly playing the Buffalo Bills on Wild Card Weekend, which, oh man, that would be an emotional roller coaster, especially in Buffalo. All right, let's talk about player stats. And we're going to talk about Tyler Huntley. He arguably had one of his best career games as a Miami Dolphin. Short stint, but this is arguably one of the best ones. 22 for 26 in terms of passing, 225 yards, 1 touchdown, but was sacked 4 times for a loss of 19. He was having to run around a bit. He was facing Myles Garrett and that Cleveland Browns pass rush, which is no joke. So don't really blame him too much there. But if we continue moving on, we have Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who had the ball in his hands a lot, and it was very unfortunate for him because Dolphins made a good point of making his pass throws very, very tough to get off. DTR went 24 of 47, 170 total yards. He also threw an interception, and he was sacked once for 8 total yards. But he was also, he had I want to say 2 or 3 intentional grounding penalties called against him. So you can almost add 2 more sacks to that Dolphins stat sheet, but it is what it is. Rushing was not great, and that was arguably one of my talking points for Keith's victory was a good rushing game. 74 total rushing yards on the ground. You do have that big -11 from Malik Washington on one of those trick plays. So in reality, the Dolphins had 85 rushing yards on the ground. Still not so great. I hate to see this team not surpassing triple digits in terms of rushing stats each and every week on the ground as a team. Hopefully from certain players, but yeah, it just wasn't their week on the ground. And it's a big kudos to that Cleveland Browns front seven. They were able to get in that backfield in a hurry. I think it's a little bit more of a detriment towards the Dolphins' offensive line. They have had their struggles all season long. But the Dolphins' leading rusher was Tyler Huntley with 7 carries for 52 total yards. We also had Devon Achane 10 carries for 25. Tyler Huntley also had a big 18-yard run. Wanted to include in the highlight, but decided not to. We're going to continue on with the Cleveland Browns. Devontae Foreman had 13 carries for 49 total yards. Pierre Strong Jr. had 5 carries for 33. Jerome Ford had 6 carries for 22. He had left the game early with an ankle injury. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 4 carries for 10 yards, totaling for 114 total yards on the ground. So not the best day on the ground in terms of stopping the run for the Miami Dolphins, but they were able to do a lot more with getting to the ETR, which was more beneficial to them on the defensive side of the ball. Let's talk about the Dolphins receivers. Tyreek Hill had the most receptions today with 9 receptions for 105 yards. He had a long of 25. This was really good. No drops by Tyreek either, which was very well to see. And this was just good to see Tyler Huntley and Tyreek Hill finally getting on the same page in terms of passing, which was a big struggle early on when Tyler Huntley was getting his first couple starts with the Miami Dolphins. To continue on, we have Malik Washington, 4 receptions for 41. Jonnu Smith, 3 receptions for 26 and a touchdown. Beverly Craycraft, 1 reception for 16. Raheem Mostert, 2 receptions for 16. Devon Achane, 2 receptions for 13. And D. Eskridge, 1 reception for 8. Meanwhile, in the Cleveland Browns, Jerry Jeudy had 12 total receptions for 94 total yards. Then moving down the list, you also have Jordan Akins with 6 receptions for 49. And then Pierre Strong Jr. with 3 receptions for 15. Everyone else below them had 1 reception for under 10 yards each. Let's talk about some fumbles. Tyler Huntley had a fumble, and he also recovered it. And then Dorian Thompson-Robinson had a fumble, and it was recovered by Deshaun Hand. So shout out to Deshaun Hand. Got his hands on it. Oh, man. Let's continue on to the defensive stats. Tyrell Dodson was all over the field today. He had 15 total tackles, 8 solo. He had a pass deflection and a QB hit. Moving down the list, we have Jordan Burks with 9 total, 8 solo, with a tackle for a loss. Jordan Poyer with 6 total, 4 solo, and a pass deflection. And then let's talk about some key stats for our guys. Storm Duck with a pass deflection. Manuel Ogba with 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 QB hits. Kader Kohu with 1 pass deflection. Benito Jones with a tackle for a loss and a QB hit. Let's see, Calais Campbell with a tackle for a loss. He should have had a sack and a QB hit. Let's see what else. Javon Holland with a QB hit. And Jalen Ramsey for pass deflection. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns. There was no Denzel Ward in this one, so that's why it explains a little bit more why the Dolphins were a little bit more lenient on the pass today with Tyler Huntley, and it was a little bit more efficient. But Grant Delpit was the leading tackler with 9 total tackles, 7 solo. 1 tackle for a loss, 1 QB hit. Jordan Hicks was shortly behind him with 7 total, 2 solo. He also had 1 QB hit. And key stats for the Browns defense. Myles Garrett, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, 2 QB hits. Devin Bush had a tackle for a loss. Isaiah McGuire had a sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and 3 QB hits. Dalvin Tomlinson had a tackle for a loss. And then Cameron Thomas had a sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and 1 QB hit. And that pretty much wraps up the Cleveland Browns defensive stats. Interceptions, Tyrell Dodson had that interception, was returned for no yardage. Kick returns, Jerome Ford had a kick return for 23 total yards. Punt returns, we had Malik Washington with 2 returns for 20. He had a long of 16, and then Tyreek Hill had 1 return for 18. And then in terms of the Browns, we have James Prochet II had 1 return for 9. And moving down the list of kicking, Jay Sanders went 2 for 2 on field goals, longest of 54, and then 2 for 2 on extra points. And then Dustin Hopkins went 1 for 1 on field goals, longest of 25, totaling for 3 points. Jake Bailey had 7 punts for 307 yards, 2 of which were touchbacks, 2 were in the 20, longest of 53. And then Corey Bajorquez had 5 punts for 250 yards, and he had a longest of 68, which was absolutely booming punt. But that pretty much wraps up everything there for this game. Now, Dolphins finally at 8-8. One more game to partially decide their destiny. Their destiny is not fully in their hands. Yes, they have the control and sense of getting a win against the New York Jets, but they need the Denver Broncos to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, and then they're in. They already got the Colts to lose to the New York Giants this week, so that was big time by the New York Giants. So thank you, Drew Lock and Malik Neighbors. You guys went off and helped the Dolphins move forward in their progression to hopefully make it the playoffs. But now it's down to possibly Carson Wentz and the Kansas City Chiefs to help the Miami Dolphins pass that threshold and get into the playoffs. Yes, I know they will be a 7 seed. Yes, I know it's going to be a tough spot to be in Buffalo. But I liked how the Dolphins played last time in Buffalo. Now, if they get Tua back for that, they get Tua back for this Jets game big time. They get Tua back for that playoff game even bigger. So, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but the Miami Dolphins have a chance, and there's a lot of work to be done. I don't think this will be a successful playoff run should they be able to get in, but it's just the fact of doing it, getting there, and proving to the fact that even with everything that went awry this season for the Miami Dolphins, they were still able to find a way to get themselves into the postseason. And, I'll take a small victory with that, but still a lot to be desired with this Miami Dolphins team. They can't run the ball well. They struggle at times to, get to the quarterback in terms of, bringing the quarterback down and completing the sack process. Aside from that, I'm liking what I'm seeing on the defensive side of the ball. The offense has left so much to be desired. The passing game isn't what it was last year, and the running game is way far off from what it was last year. And even last year, the running game wasn't too insanely well. So, like I'm saying, leaves a lot to be desired. Hoping they can make it there, but if they don't, definitely understanding. It sucks that we get this close, and probably gonna get the heart ripped out of our chest each and every year. But it's gonna come down to the wire on this one. In terms of talking about the keys to victory, I do think the Dolphins made a very good effort in terms of putting lots and lots of pressure on Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He dropped back 47 times and barely had a 50% of completion. So, that's a win there. Threw an interception. He had fumbled the ball. So, I think there's a lot there that you can look at a success and give a check mark to that key to victory. Running the ball, Dolphins did not run the ball very well. So that is what it is. Another thing, I forgot what the third one was, but honestly, they probably did or didn't execute it. It is what it is. But Mike McDaniel on one single drive, and one pretty much swoop of the series, challenged whether or not Tyler Huntley made the line of the game on one of the third down runs. It was a close one. You could argue that, it's a tough one to flip. Fine. The one that he called in the following drive on the Cleveland Browns offense, it looked like a possible backwards pass. It was very close to call too. So now Mike McDaniel is 4 for 18 on coaches' challenges. It's a tough break. I felt like the last one with the Browns possible backwards pass, could have been a little bit more reversible, but too close to call, and not winning too many challenges, Mike McDaniel over there. With all this being said, pretty much gonna repeat this until I can't say it no more. Miami Dolphins need a win against the New York Jets. That's first and foremost. Dolphins, if they lose, they do not have a chance to get it. So Miami Dolphins need to get a win against the New York Jets. And the Denver Broncos need to lose against, guess who? Kansas City Chiefs. And they don't possibly have Patrick Mahomes because they locked up the number 1 seed already. So, interesting spot. Now, let's say all those things happen, except for the Miami Dolphins winning and the Cincinnati Bengals win, and the Bengals sneak their way into the playoffs. So, it will be an interesting time. Those 3 teams will be playing all at the same time, I'm assuming, on Sunday. So, should be a fun watch, and hopefully, Dolphins somehow, some way find a way to get in. With all that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this post-game review. Let me know what you guys thought of this game. I was enthused. It was a challenging watch at times. There were certain moments I was like, oh, why is this happening? But it is what it is. Dolphins were able to separate and really put the pedal to the metal in the second half, and that's not really saying much about scoring 2 touchdowns in a span of 2 quarters. But it was a slow and ugly game, and the Dolphins somehow found their way on top. So can't be too displeased about it. There is concern about Tua's health and whether or not we're going to see him suit up for the remainder of the season, whether it's going to be this upcoming game or in postseason should they get there. We don't know. And, I'm just hoping for the best for the Miami Dolphins. And, it would be cool to see postseason football, but hope it's all for not because, it will be a tough task to play in Buffalo. That's all I got to say. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next one.